The Grand Council chamber of the Empire buzzed with nervous energy as High Admiral adjusted his ceremonial robes. The crystalline walls of the space station reflected the pale light of 3 distant suns, casting rainbow patterns across the assembled delegates from 47 different species. Today marked the most ambitious magical undertaking in galactic history. "Esteemed colleagues," announced, his voice amplified through bioacoustic enhancers, "we stand on the precipice of victory against the void spawn menace that threatens our very existence." The void spawn had appeared 6 months ago, tearing through reality itself to consume entire star systems. These creatures of pure darkness seemed immune to conventional weapons, feeding on energy and matter alike. Billions had already perished, and entire civilizations had been reduced to cosmic dust. Chief Summoner Il, a tall being with 6 arms and skin that shifted colors with his emotions, stepped forward. His form currently displayed deep purple streaks of concentration mixed with golden flecks of excitement. "The ancient texts speak of warriors from beyond our reality, beings so powerful they could challenge the very gods themselves. We have located the dimensional signature of their realm." The other council members shifted uncomfortably. The fox-like twitched their ears nervously, while the tree-like rustled their leaf-covered branches with anxiety. Even the normally stoic crystallines seemed to vibrate with uncertainty. "Are we certain this is wise?" asked Ambassador, her serpentine form coiled elegantly around her hovering platform. "Summoning unknown entities from another dimension carries enormous risks." 3 eyes fixed on her with determination. "The void spawn consumed the home system yesterday. 12 billion souls gone in mere hours. We've lost 30% of our combined fleets. Conventional warfare has failed utterly." The massive summoning circle had taken 3 weeks to construct, carved directly into the station's central deck. Rare crystals from 17 different worlds formed intricate patterns, each one charged with the collective psychic energy of 1 billion minds. The geometric designs pulsed with otherworldly light, creating patterns that seemed to twist space itself. Il began the incantation, his 6 arms weaving complex gestures while his voice rose and fell in harmonics that made reality itself shiver. The other mages joined in, their combined power creating a whirlwind of energy that threatened to tear apart the station's hull. "We call upon the warriors of legend," Il chanted, sweat beading across his shifting skin. "Those who have conquered death itself, who walk among the stars as gods among mortals. We beseech thee, champions of the void, answer our desperate call." The summoning circle erupted with blinding light. Space-time twisted and warped, creating a visible tear in reality that revealed glimpses of another universe beyond. Strange energies poured through the gap, carrying with them the scent of alien atmospheres and the distant echo of unfamiliar sounds. "Something's coming through," shouted one of the technicians, his monitoring equipment screaming warnings as energy readings spiked beyond all known scales. The rift pulsed once, twice, then stabilized into a swirling vortex of impossible colors. Through the dimensional gateway, shapes began to emerge. The council members leaned forward eagerly, expecting to see the divine warriors described in their ancient texts. What stepped through instead made several of the more delicate species faint immediately. The first figure was massive, easily 7 feet tall, with bulging muscles that strained against strange fabric coverings. Its skin was and weathered, marked by what appeared to be countless battles. Most terrifying of all were its eyes' small, predatory orbs that seemed to catalog every potential threat in the room within seconds. "Holy shit," the creature said, its voice a deep rumble that vibrated through the station's hull. "Where the hell are we?" More figures emerged from the portal. Each one was similarly massive and intimidating, their bodies clearly built for violence. They moved with a fluid grace that spoke of absolute confidence in their physical abilities, like apex predators suddenly dropped into a room full of prey. One of the smaller beings had flowing hair the color of starlight and carried what appeared to be a primitive projectile weapon. Despite her size relative to the others, her presence was equally intimidating. Her eyes swept the assembled aliens with the cool calculation of a professional killer. "Did we just get abducted by aliens?" she asked. Her tone suggesting this was merely an inconvenience rather than a terrifying ordeal. The largest of the group, a giant with arms like tree trunks and hands that could crush skulls, looked around the chamber with obvious disappointment. "I was expecting something more impressive. These guys look like they'd break if I sneezed on them. Ambassador attempted to maintain diplomatic protocols despite her terror. Welcome, mighty warriors. We have summoned you to aid us in our darkest hour. We face an enemy that threatens all life in our galaxy. The human woman laughed, a sound that sent chills through the assembled council. Oh, this is rich. You summoned us from Earth. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Chief Summoner Ill's skin had shifted to deep purple shot through with yellow streaks of confusion. The ancient text spoke of divine champions from beyond the stars, warriors who had conquered death itself. Conquered death, the big human grinned, revealing teeth that seemed far too sharp. Well, you got that part right. We're really good at death, both giving it and surviving it. Another human stepped forward, this one lean and with eyes that never stopped moving. Let me get this straight. You guys are in trouble, so you decided to kidnap humans from Earth to solve your problems. Kidnap is such an ugly word, stammered, his usual commanding presence completely shattered by these terrifying beings. We merely invited you here to assist us. Without asking, the woman pointed out, and without a way to send us back, I'm guessing. The uncomfortable silence that followed was answer enough. The largest human cracked his knuckles, a sound like breaking bones. Well, this is awkward. You've just kidnapped the apex predators from a Class XII death world and dropped us into what looks like a galactic civilization. And from the looks of you folks, you wouldn't last 5 minutes on Earth. Death world, whispered one of the delegates, his fur standing on end. The lean human smiled coldly. Earth is what happens when a planet tries to kill everything that lives on it, every single day, for billions of years. Whether that can flash freeze or incinerate without warning, predators that hunt in packs, diseases that can wipe out entire populations, natural disasters that make extinction events look like mild inconveniences. And we're the species that won, the woman added cheerfully. We didn't just survive Earth, we conquered it. Every other predator on our planet either went extinct or learned to fear us. We turned the most hostile environment in the known galaxy into our personal playground. The reality of their situation began to dawn on the alien council. These weren't divine warriors sent by benevolent gods. These were evolved killers from a world so hostile it had produced the galaxy's most dangerous predators, and they'd just been kidnapped. The good news, said the largest human, his grin widening, is that we're actually pretty reasonable. Most of the time. The bad news is that you've just committed what we consider an act of war against Earth. But first, the woman said, checking her weapon with practiced efficiency, why don't you tell us about these enemies of yours? Because if you thought you needed to summon to handle them, this should be interesting. High Admiral looked around the chamber at his fellow council members, all of whom appeared to be questioning every decision that had led to this moment. The summoning had worked exactly as planned, bringing them warriors from beyond their reality who had indeed conquered death itself. The problem was that they'd also brought the death with them. The emergency briefing room aboard the command vessel felt more like a hostage negotiation than a military planning session. The 5 humans sat casually around the holographic display table, seemingly relaxed despite being surrounded by armed guards from a dozen different species. Their apparent calm made the situation even more terrifying for the alien council. Captain Sarah, the woman with starlight hair, leaned back in her chair and studied the tactical readouts with professional interest. Her companions had introduced themselves with names that sounded deceptively ordinary, the giant with fists like hammers. David, the lean scout with predator's eyes. Doctor, whose medical knowledge included an encyclopedic understanding of how to efficiently kill any species. And James Park, whose expertise in demolitions had already made several council members nervous just listening to him speak. So let me understand this correctly, Sarah said, gesturing at the holographic display showing the Void Spawn's latest attack. These things phase in and out of reality, consume both matter and energy, reproduce by converting entire star systems into themselves, and they're completely immune to all your conventional weapons. High Admiral nodded miserably. Our greatest fleets barely slow them down. They seem to feed on the energy of our weapons, growing stronger with each attack. Examined footage of a void spawn devouring a planet, watching as the creature's impossible geometry folded space around itself. How big do they get? The largest confirmed specimen was approximately the size of your Earth's moon, Chief Science Officer Ra replied, her feathers rustling with anxiety. It consumed the entire Helix Nebula before moving on to the next system. Interesting, Doctor mused, pulling up biological scans on her tablet. They're not really biological, are they? More like living physics violations. David had been quietly studying the tactical reports while the others talked. You've been fighting these things for 6 months and haven't learned anything useful about killing them. We've tried everything, Ambassador insisted, her coils tightening with frustration. Antimatter weapons, quantum disruptors, reality anchors, dimensional barriers, nothing works. They simply absorb the energy and become stronger. Because you're thinking like prey, James observed, examining the structural scans of a space station that had been partially consumed. You're trying to outtech a force of nature instead of understanding what it actually is. The aliens exchanged uncomfortable glances. The humans' casual assessment of their greatest scientific achievements as inadequate was deeply unsettling, especially since they were probably right. Sarah pulled up a 3-dimensional model of a void spawn attack pattern. Show me their reproduction cycle again. The hologram displayed the horrifying process. A mature void spawn would engulf a planet or star, converting the matter and energy into dozens of smaller offspring that would then spread to consume neighboring systems. They're not actually consuming the matter, said suddenly, her scientific training kicking in. They're converting it into themselves. It's like viral reproduction, but with physics instead of biology. Grinned, an expression that made several guards reach for their weapons. So they've got a weakness. Everything that reproduces has a weakness. We've analyzed their reproduction cycle extensively, Ra protested. There's no apparent vulnerability in the process. That's because you're looking at it wrong, David said, pulling up star charts showing the void spawn's expansion pattern. You're thinking of them as individuals, but look at this spread pattern. They're not individuals, they're organs of something bigger. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If the void spawn were organs, then something incomprehensibly vast was using them to consume the galaxy. Doesn't matter, Sarah said cheerfully. Big or small, everything can be killed if you know where to hit it. How can you be so confident? Demanded. These beings are beyond our comprehension. Because we're from Earth, replied simply. Do you know what the most dangerous thing on our planet is? The aliens shook their heads. Humans answered. We didn't just survive our death world, we turned it into our hunting ground. Every other apex predator learned to fear us or went extinct trying to compete with us. James was studying the energy signatures from the attacks. These things operate on quantum uncertainty, right? They exist in multiple states simultaneously until they interact with matter. Correct, Ra confirmed. Their quantum superposition allows them to phase through conventional defenses. Then you collapse their wave function, James said matter-of-factly. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would exceed the output of our largest stars. David laughed. You're still thinking like prey. You don't need massive energy, you need precise application. We call it leveraged force multiplication on Earth. Give us a ship, Sarah commanded, her tone shifting from casual to coldly professional. Something fast with good sensors and basic manufacturing capabilities. You can't seriously be planning to engage them directly, protested. They'll consume you instantly. Maybe, agreed, but probably not. We're used to fighting things that want to kill us. It's literally what we evolved for. Gestured helplessly at the tactical displays. Our greatest warships, crewed by the galaxy's finest military minds, have been destroyed without inflicting any meaningful damage. How could 5 beings, regardless of their origins, possibly succeed where we have failed? Because we're not trying to fight them fairly, explained patiently. Fair fights are for sports. When it comes to survival, humans cheat. Show us your weapons' manufacturing capabilities, Sarah ordered. What's the strongest material you can produce? We can synthesize quantum-locked crystalline matrices that are theoretically indestructible, Chief Engineer reported, his rocky features creaking as he spoke. Good, what about your best sensors? Our quantum scanners can detect energy signatures across 17 dimensions, Ra said proudly. Even better, fabrication speed. Our automated systems can construct a frigate-class vessel in approximately 6 standard hours. The humans exchanged looks that made the aliens deeply nervous. Here's what's going to happen, Sarah announced. We're going to build something that's never existed before, a ship designed specifically to kill void spawn. Not to fight them, not to delay them, but to hunt them down and execute them. That's madness, breathed. No, David corrected, his face splitting into a predator's grin. That's human. Doctor was already sketching preliminary designs on her tablet. We'll need a quantum uncertainty generator, pattern recognition algorithms, and a delivery system that can function in collapsed space-time. I can build that, James said confidently. Give me access to your manufacturing systems and I'll have a prototype ready in 12 hours. Cracked his knuckles again. How long until the next void spawn attack? Intelligence suggests they'll strike the Meridian system within 36 hours, reported automatically, still stunned by the human's casual confidence. Perfect timing, Sarah said. We'll field test our new toy on real targets. The alien council members stared at these 5 beings who had been accidentally summoned from beyond the stars. They had expected divine warriors to save them from extinction. Instead, they had unleashed something far more terrifying: human ingenuity, combined with the absolute certainty that any problem could be solved through the application of sufficient violence. One question, said weakly. What happens after you've defeated the void spawn? Sarah's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. Well, that depends on how reasonable you folks are about getting us home, because right now you've essentially declared war on Earth by kidnapping us. And trust me, you really don't want to see what happens when Earth declares war back. The council members realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had summoned to save their galaxy from an incomprehensible threat. Problem was that they might have just introduced an even greater threat to the galaxy: 5 humans with nothing left to lose, and all the resources of an advanced galactic civilization at their disposal. The vessel that emerged from the construction bays looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. Where alien ship design favored elegant curves and aesthetic beauty, the human creation was purely functional, angular, brutal, and covered in sensors that gave it the appearance of a mechanical spider. The aliens had christened it divine retribution in their databases, but the humans simply called it the sledgehammer. Captain Sarah stood on the bridge, which had been redesigned according to human specifications. Instead of the comfortable, spacious command centers favored by galactic civilizations, this was a cramped, efficient workspace where every surface served multiple functions. Display screens covered every wall, showing real-time tactical data, sensor readings, and weapon status updates. Quantum uncertainty generator is online, James reported from his engineering station, surrounded by equipment that made the alien technicians nervous just to look at. We can collapse probability fields in a sphere approximately 50,000 kilometers in diameter. Pattern recognition is locked and loaded, David added from the sensor array. I've programmed it to identify void spawn quantum signatures across 17-dimensional phases. When these things try to phase shift, we'll know about it before they do. Doctor monitored the medical bay, which had been converted into a combination laboratory and weapons testing facility. Biological countermeasures are ready. If these things have any organic components, we'll find them. Flexed his hands over the weapons controls, which had been to human preferences: point, shoot, kill. All weapons systems green, kinetic penetrators loaded with quantum-locked warheads. The bridge fell silent as they approached the Meridian system, where intelligence indicated the next void spawn attack would occur. The system contained over 4 billion inhabitants across 3 inhabited worlds and dozens of orbital stations. If the attack proceeded as previous ones had, everything would be consumed within hours. Contact, David announced suddenly. Multiple quantum distortions detected at the system's edge. They're bigger than intelligence reports suggested. The main display filled with sensor data showing massive tears in spacetime itself. Through the rifts came the void spawn, not the individual creatures the aliens had been fighting, but something far worse. A massive parent entity the size of a small moon, surrounded by hundreds of smaller offspring. Jesus Christ, Sarah whispered. No wonder your fleets couldn't handle this. You've been fighting the bobbies while Mama stayed home. High Admiral's voice crackled over the communication channel from the command fleet hanging back at a supposedly safe distance. Divine retribution, you must withdraw immediately. That entity is larger than anything we've encountered. Negative, Sarah replied calmly. We're going hunting. The void spawn parent had begun its feeding process. extending tendrils of impossible geometry toward Meridian Prime. Where the tendrils touched the planet's atmosphere, reality simply ceased to exist, leaving gaps in space that hurt to look at directly. "Beginning approach," Sarah announced. "James, I need that uncertainty generator at maximum power." "Copy that. Fair warning. When I fire this thing, it's going to feel like reality is having a seizure. Target the parent entity's largest appendage. David, I need continuous sensor sweeps. If any of the offspring try to flank us, I want to know immediately." "Are you getting any biological readings?" "Negative on biology, but I'm detecting something interesting. There's a pattern to their quantum states almost like a heartbeat. Whatever consciousness is driving these things, it's centralized." The sledgehammer accelerated toward the massive entity, its hull beginning to vibrate as they entered the creature's distortion field. Space around them twisted and warped, making navigation nearly impossible through conventional means. "Firing uncertainty generator," James announced. The effect was immediate and horrifying. The void spawn's quantum superposition collapsed like a house of cards, forcing it into a single-dimensional state. For the first time since the invasion began, a void spawn became truly, physically real. And therefore vulnerable. "Holy shit, it worked," shouted. "The bastard's solid." The parent entity recoiled in what could only be described as shock, its feeding process interrupted as it suddenly found itself confined to normal spacetime. Its offspring scattered in apparent confusion, their own quantum states fluctuating wildly. "Now," Sarah commanded, "all weapons concentrated fire on the central mass." The sledgehammer's weapon systems unleashed hell. Kinetic penetrators moving at significant fractions of light speed slammed into the creature's suddenly solid form, each one carrying quantum-locked warheads designed to prevent the target from phasing back into sewer position. The void spawn's scream echoed across multiple dimensions, a sound that registered on sensors as both massive energy discharge and gravitational distortion. Parts of its impossible anatomy began to collapse, revealing the underlying structure that the aliens had never been able to study. "I'm reading massive internal damage," reported excitedly. "It's trying to regenerate, but the quantum locks are preventing molecular reconstruction." "Keep firing," Sarah ordered. "David, what are the offspring doing?" "They're regrouping. Looks like they're preparing for a coordinated attack." "James, can you expand the uncertainty field?" "Working on it. Give me 30 seconds." The smaller void spawn struck like living lightning, their attacks coordinated with frightening intelligence. But instead of the usual phase shifting that made them impossible to target, they found themselves forced into normal space by the expanding uncertainty field. Laughed with genuine joy as his weapons found their marks. "It's like shooting fish in a barrel. These things have never had to fight fair before." The battle became a systematic execution. Each void spawn that entered the uncertainty field became vulnerable to conventional weapons, and human weapons were anything but conventional. The aliens watching from their distant fleet could barely comprehend what they were seeing for the first time in 6 months. Void spawn were dying. "Central entity is showing critical damage," announced. "Whatever passes for its vital systems are failing." The parent creature made one final desperate attempt to escape, trying to tear open a dimensional rift back to whatever realm it had emerged from. But the uncertainty generator held it firmly in normal spacetime, trapped and dying. "Finish it," Sarah ordered quietly. Its final salvo struck the creature's core, the quantum-locked warheads preventing any possibility of regeneration or escape. The massive entity convulsed once, twice, then simply ceased to exist, leaving nothing but dissipating energy patterns. The remaining offspring, cut off from whatever intelligence had been coordinating them, scattered and fled into deep space. "Meridian system is secure," Sarah reported to the alien fleet. "All void spawn entities destroyed or rooted, beginning damage assessment." The communication channels filled with stunned silence, then gradually erupted in celebration from the various alien species. They had just witnessed the impossible void spawn not just defeated, but utterly destroyed. His voice was filled with awe and confusion. "How did you accomplish in hours what our fleets couldn't do in months?" "Because we understood what they actually were," explained patiently. "They're not invincible cosmic entities. They're quantum parasites that evolved in a realm where uncertainty allowed them to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Force them into normal space-time, and they become just another predator that can be killed. But why didn't our scientists discover this? Chief Science Officer Ra asked plaintively. David's laugh was harsh. Because your scientists were trying to understand them. We didn't need to understand them, we just needed to kill them. The uncertainty generator will need some modifications for larger-scale deployment, James added. But give me a few weeks, and I can build generators powerful enough to cover entire star systems. Sarah was already planning the next phase. We'll need to locate their point of origin, the realm they're coming from. As long as that gateway exists, more of them will eventually figure out how to adapt to our countermeasures. You want to invade their home dimension? Asked in horror. Of course, replied cheerfully. Can't have them coming back for round 2. High Admiral's voice carried a note of desperate hope. If we provide you with the resources you need, fleets, construction facilities, anything you require, could you truly end this threat permanently? Sarah considered this. Probably, but that's not the real question, is it? What do you mean? The real question is what happens after we've solved your void spawn problem. You summoned us here without permission, which makes this essentially a kidnapping. We've been polite about it so far because we understood the urgency, but that situation is going to need to be resolved. The communication channel fell silent as the Alien Council realized they were now trapped in a completely different kind of problem. They had successfully summoned beings powerful enough to defeat the void spawn. Those same beings were now expecting them to explain why kidnapping humans had been acceptable, and the humans' definition of acceptable consequences might be very different from anything the galaxy was prepared to deal with. Doctor was studying the energy readings from the destroyed void spawn. Sarah, you need to see this. The quantum signature from the parent entity, it's not natural evolution. Something created these things deliberately. Sarah's expression went cold. You mean someone turned them into weapons? That's exactly what I mean, and whoever did it is still out there. The aliens listened to this conversation with growing horror, realizing that their galaxy's problems might be far from over. They had thought the void spawn were a natural disaster. If the humans were right, they were facing an enemy intelligent enough to create planet-consuming weapons and ruthless enough to unleash them on innocent civilizations. An enemy that now knew the galaxy had acquired defenders capable of destroying their creations. An enemy that would undoubtedly want to do something about that.